Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a break from the intense drama, the chases, and the dark conspiracies. Today, let's just slow down, pull up a chair on the wooden porch with Toan and Diem, and feel a kind of happiness so simple it might just bring you to tears. It's that feeling when you finally walk through a long storm and see the blue sky for the first time. It's the feeling of touching the earth and knowing that from here life begins. A story of gratitude and dreams nurtured in the quiet night. Sunset began to settle over the hill. Thu and his mother's car had disappeared around the bend, leaving behind the mountain's natural silence. But today, that silence didn't feel desolate or cold. It felt strangely warm. Toan and Diem stood there still as statues amidst the vast landscape. Before them lay the small house and the land just entrusted to them. Neither spoke a word, but they could clearly hear their hearts beating in the same rhythm, a rhythm of overwhelming emotion. It seemed as if time had slowed down, freezing in this moment to honor a turning point in their fate. This place didn't originally belong to them. It was someone else's property. Yet strangely, in this very second, it was welcoming them with a gentle embrace. No harsh lease agreements, no judging eyes. Just the unconditional kindness of Thu's mother. Just stay, pay me back when you're rich. That sentence kept echoing in Diem's mind, making her nose sting with held-back tears. Diem blinked, trying to stop happy tears from spilling over. She looked at the rustic wooden walls, the roof that would shelter them from sun and rain. To others, this was just an old cabin on a wild hill. But to Diem, this was a castle. It meant that tonight, they wouldn't have to worry about the wind and rain. It meant the fitful sleep of anxiety was over. It was safety, a place to return to, and the chance to rebuild the life she had yearned for so desperately. Toan stood beside his wife, his chest tightening, a feeling both heavy and glorious. This gift was too huge. It wasn't just material, it was trust. Thu's mother had placed complete faith in him, even though he was just a man with no memory and an unknown past. Toan looked down at his calloused hands, then out at the vast land before him. To this man, kindness wasn't something to just enjoy. It was a debt of honor. He made a silent vow, not a single inch of this land will be wasted. I won't allow myself a single day of laziness. Diem slowly crouched down. Her small hand touched the ground. She scooped up a handful of dark brown earth, letting it sift through her fingers. The cool, raw feel of the soil sent a jolt of electricity straight to her heart. The land was dry and rocky, but it held a fierce, latent vitality. In that moment, Diem felt connected, not just to the land, but to her own destiny. She looked up at Toan, her eyes glistening. Honey, this land is still fast asleep. Shall we wake it up? Toan smiled a gentle but resolute smile. He placed his large, warm hand on Diem's shoulder, squeezing lightly to reassure her. Yeah, we'll make flowers bloom even from these stones. This place will be our home. They stood there in silence, letting gratitude settle deep into their souls. This wasn't a grand beginning with lavish parties. It was a humble beginning, built on compassion and faith. And perhaps beginnings like this are the most enduring of all. Night fell, blanketing the hill in a mysterious but peaceful darkness. Inside the wooden cabin, a faint yellow light cast a small, cozy glow. Toan and Diem sat across from each other at a low wooden table. Between them sat a pot of freshly brewed hot tea. Steam rose, curling and dissolving into the air, carrying the faint scent of green tea and warm ginger. The silence now wasn't heavy with worry, like those nights in the hospital or under the bridge. This silence was incredibly soothing. It was the quiet of two souls that had found their harbor. The gratitude from earlier hadn't faded. It had transformed into a new energy determination. Outside the window, the land lay quiet under the dim moonlight, empty, but full of promise. It was like a blank sheet of paper waiting for them to write their story. Diem cupped the tea in her hands to warm them. She broke the silence with a voice as light as the breeze, but her eyes were burning bright. Toan, I'm imagining things. Fasashin? Imagining what? Toan looked at his wife intently. I see. That empty patch in the front yard. I won't let weeds grow there anymore. I want to turn it into a lush, green vegetable garden. Diem began painting the picture in her mind with words. Look, mustard greens will grow in straight rows over there, heads of lettuce round and fresh green. And in the left corner, where it gets the most sun, we'll plant a trellis for fragrant loofah gourds. In the summer, bright yellow flowers will bloom, and bees and butterflies will swarm the sky. Do you see how beautiful it is? Toan nodded, absorbing every word his wife said. He looked where she pointed into the empty air, and strangely enough, he could see exactly what she was describing. It's beautiful, honey, but I want to add a little something. Toan continued excitedly, his voice deep and confident. In the pathways between the vegetable rows, I won't leave the dirt bare. I'll go collect river pebbles to pave them. That way, whenever you go out to pick vegetables, your feet won't get muddy. And right under that old jackfruit tree, I'll build a bamboo cot, or maybe a long bench. What for? Diem asked. So that every afternoon after we're tired from working, we can sit there and rest. You'll brew some herbal tea, and I'll sit there fanning you. We will sit together and just watch the fruits of our labor. Just like that, their conversation flowed like a stream. Every idea shared was another brick building their future. Diem wanted this land to be able to breathe. She didn't want to use pesticides. She wanted everything to be pure. She wanted to wake up every morning, open the door, and see the vibrant colors of life. Toan was thinking even further ahead. He planned to raise a few flocks of free-range chickens for eggs and get a small puppy to guard the house and keep them company. He didn't just want to plant fruit trees, but also shade trees for 5-10 years down the road. Who knows? Maybe in the future, our children will play under those trees, Toan said, hesitatingly, a hint of shyness in his eyes, but overflowing with hope. The conversation happened so naturally. No rushing, no pressure. Just absolute understanding and trust between two people who had walked through the storm together. Outside, the land seemed to be listening to them. The wind rustled through the grass like a whisper of agreement. Do it. I'm waiting for you to take care of me. Diem smiled as she spoke. Her smile tonight was more radiant than ever. The worry lines on her forehead had smoothed out. She felt she truly belonged here. That feeling of being shushed adrift in the vast world had vanished. This was home. This was their land, even if borrowed, the feeling was real. Toan looked at his wife smiling, and a rare sense of peace flooded his heart. He covered Diem's hand on the table with his own. Her hand was small, but incredibly resilient. Thank you, Diem. Thank you for not leaving me when I didn't even remember who I was. Thank you for dreaming this dream with me." Diem squeezed his hand gently. "No need for thanks between us. Let's get some sleep, honey. As soon as the sun comes up, we start. Tomorrow is going to be a busy day." That night, in the wooden cabin high on the hill, two people fell into the deepest, most restful sleep they had ever known. They slept without dreams, because they had already painted their most beautiful dream while they were awake. And out there, deep beneath the soil, the seeds of hope seemed to be stirring, waiting for the planter's hand tomorrow. It was late on the hill. After the long conversation about the future, Toan and Diem still sat there quiet on the porch. For the first time, after a long drifting period, the future didn't feel distant or uncertain anymore. It was no longer a thick fog that terrified them. Instead, the future now felt close, tangible, like it was standing right outside the door, just waiting for them to open it and let it in. Both understood clearly that the road ahead wouldn't be paved with roses. This land was dry and wild. It would demand their sweat patience and exhausted endurance. There would be days of scorching sun and days of rotting rain. However, the strange thing was that the prospect of hard work didn't scare them. On the contrary, it gave their lives meaning. It made them feel useful, giving them a goal to strive for every time they woke up. As the night grew thicker, their discussion slowly transformed into a sacred vow. They looked at each other, then out at the pitch-black yard. They agreed on one thing. This land, this asset borrowed through the unconditional kindness of Thu and his mother, would be treated with the highest respect and care. It wasn't wasteland, it was a debt of kindness. Every seed sown here would carry their deep gratitude. Every strike of the hoe to improve the soil would be an act of honoring the trust their benefactors had placed in their hands. Diem gently rested her head on Toan's shoulder. That shoulder, thinned by hardship and illness, felt more solid right now than any mountain. She was comforted by the certainty that they no longer had to face the world alone. Toan gently gripped his wife's hand, a grip that was firm, warm, and reassuring. Inside, the man swore a silent oath. "I will protect you. I will protect the life we are about to build here. Whoever I was, whatever my past was, I will use my entire life to guard this present and this future." By the time the tea on the table had gone cold, the decision in their hearts was hot and clear. This place wouldn't just be a shelter from the rain. It would become a lush, green farm. It would thrive, built by their own hands and watered with hope. In the absolute silence of that humble wooden cabin, Toan and Diem crossed an invisible line together. They left behind the fear and uncertainty of their wandering days, and together they stepped toward a new light, a future rooted deep in the earth and rooted in their love for each other. The next morning, dawn arrived with a gentle, golden light piercing through the leaves and dancing on the roof of the wooden cabin. The early sun felt like a whisper from the universe, urging Diem and Toan to begin their journey. The resolve from the night before hadn't faded with the morning light. On the contrary, it became more solid and vivid than ever. It was no longer just dreamy talk over tea. A clear path had opened up before their eyes, a path from the house to the garden, a path from poverty to prosperity. Toan woke up with an unusually refreshed spirit. The dull headache that usually plagued him seemed to have vanished, replaced by eagerness. Without hesitation, the couple quickly prepared to take the first practical step, turning the borrowed land into their dream farm. They stepped out the door. The high hill air in the morning was cool and pure. Toan took a deep breath, feeling his chest fill with the energy of the earth and sky. Diem's face glowed. She tied her hair back neatly, put on her old conical hat, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. As for Toan, he moved with a new sense of purpose. He was no longer a patient. He was a pillar, a creator. Both were impatient to turn hope into concrete action. "Let's go, honey. The market is getting crowded," Toan urged, wheeling the motorbike out the gate. They went down the mountain together to buy seeds. The district market was vibrant with color today. Toan and Diem walked hand in hand through the stalls, selling seedlings and farming tools, with the same curiosity and excitement as children visiting a theme park for the first time. Diem stopped at the vegetable seed stall. She squatted down, cherishing the tiny packets in her palm. She carefully chose each type: bok choy, Malabar spinach water, morning glory, and packets of herbs. In that moment, her mind didn't just see dry seeds. She imagined the scene of lush green leaves rising from the earth in neat, healthy rows. Her touch on the seed packets was gentle, as if they were already alive, just waiting for her to wake them up. Meanwhile, Toan was drawn to the fruit tree section. He walked around the potted saplings, grilling the seller with questions. "Sir, how long until this guava tree bears fruit? Can this orange tree handle dry hill soil?" Toan listened intently, nodding to memorize the advice. He wanted to choose the varieties that would grow the strongest and be the most generous over time. Finally, he decided to buy a few pots of apple orange and guava trees. When Toan lifted them onto the bike, he felt their weight, but it wasn't a burden. Each tree represented not just future harvests of sweet fruit, but also patience. Planting fruit trees meant a long-term commitment. It represented a belief in the days ahead that they would stay here long enough to see the trees blossom and bear fruit. They returned home when the sun was high. The motorbike was loaded with seeds, saplings, and fertilizer. They were carrying things under their arms, in their hands, juggling everything. But strangely, their steps felt as light as air. The sound of their laughter echoed down the slope, natural and comfortable. It had been a long time since they had laughed this much. As soon as they returned to the land, they didn't waste a single second. No need to rest, no need to change into nice clothes. They rolled up their sleeves and put on their old, mud-stained canvas shoes. Diem and Toan began working side by side, learning the rhythm of the land together. The land had been abandoned for a long time, so the surface was hard. Toan's first strike of the hoe came down. The ground fought back with a force that numbed his hands, but the soil seemed to have a soul. It was tough, but welcoming, as if recognizing the good intentions of its new owners. Beneath the dry crust lay dark, porous earth, ready to nurture life. Diem knelt beside the furrow Toan had just tilled. She used her hands to break up the large clods and pick out the weeds. Then she carefully pressed the first seeds into the earth. Her movements were cherishing and respectful. As she covered the seeds with a thin layer of soil, her lips moved in a whisper. It wasn't a word spoken to anyone, but a prayer to the heavens and earth. Please sprout. Please grow fast. We are pouring all our hope into you. A few meters away, Toan was digging deeper holes to plant the fruit trees. He placed a sapling down, straightened it, and mounded soil around the base. Steady and focused. Every movement was measured and decisive, yet filled with silent joy. He patted the trunk of the newly planted guava tree. Stay here with us, drink up the water, and sink your roots deep. Occasionally, they paused to look at each other. No words were needed. Just a glance, a sweat-drenched smile. They understood that every simple task, striking the hoe, sowing a seed, was a step towards something much greater. A step toward freedom, toward self-made happiness. The sun reached its zenith and began to dip west. The warmth of the sun spread across the land, soaking into every muscle of the laborers. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, streaming down their backs. Toan's hands were aching and beginning to blister from being unaccustomed to the hoe. Diem's legs were numb from sitting for so long. But strangely, no one wanted to stop. Working with the land brought them a peace they had never known before. Not in the bustling city for Toan in his past, nor when wandering the streets. It was a happiness born of effort and shared purpose. They weren't working for anyone else. They were working for themselves. They were working for their home. Next step for you. Would you like me to translate the next scene where they finish the day's work and perhaps encounter the mysterious stranger? Or should we focus on a specific dialogue between them as the sun sets? The land, which had been empty and desolate in the morning, now bore the first signs of life and purpose under the sunset. The newly tilled rows of dark brown earth lay straight. The young saplings swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. At the end of the day, as the last light was fading, Toan and Diem stood side by side, looking back at the fruits of a long day's labor. Everything was still very modest. There was no vast green expanse yet, no sweet fruit to harvest. It wasn't finished, but it was full of promise. In that moment, Diem and Toan felt they were truly living, not just existing, but living. Their laughter blended with the wind. The black soil clinging under their fingernails was a badge of labor's glory. Those seeds lying dormant underground were their secret treasure. It all blended into a quiet joy filling hearts that had suffered so much damage. They knew that when they woke up tomorrow, their bodies would ache. They knew that pests, droughts, and storms would be challenges ahead. But as long as they stood together, as long as Toan held Diem's hand, and as long as they poured their sweat into this land, then surely this land would become lush and prosperous. Just like the future they were starting to build, one seed of hope at a time. Dear friends, the first day as a farmer for our amnesiac billionaire has closed with such beautiful images, hasn't it? Happiness is sometimes just getting covered in mud beside the person you love. But will those seeds sprout successfully? Will this peace last forever? Or is it just the calm before a massive storm as the enemies in the shadows begin to make their move? Hit like and subscribe right now to stand by Toan and Diem. See you in the next episode where the real challenges begin. Goodbye, and see you next time.